Hi, this is Kevin again. I am going to start my next game of Hannibal from Little Wars TV. And I think this could be a very interesting game. The rules are very simple and but well thought out, extremely well organized, and what a wealth of information. Give you a campaign system and battles, and so I'm going to give that a try today. It might be a little bit slower because I've never played it before, but I think I'm going to use the same armies, maybe a little bit smaller, so I can learn through the rules. But nonetheless, I got educated on what beer and pretzel actually means. It's not something derogatory, although it can be used that way. It is more that it's a game that creates more of a social environment. In England and in Australia, oftentimes when people are gaming, they like to have a drink and some peanuts or pretzels, and they just enjoy each other's companies while they're playing a game. And oh, I didn't look at it from that perspective, but that makes sense, and that sounds like fun. And I would welcome then lots of beer and pretzel games. So I may be changing my thinking a little bit. But I've got a lot of comments came in, very nice, respectful comments. I loved it. It was really nice. I love this community. And I also went back to some of the channels that did ancient reviews, like Mark's Game Room, Little Wars TV, and others that showed different sets of rules. And looking at it maybe from a different perspective or a different light, all of them are right and correct, and they've done a great job with it. And I appreciate their perspectives. And what I've come down to realize is that it's a very individual thing, and it's how you feel when you're playing that game. It's also the camaraderie that you have while playing those games, and who you're playing it with. Is it an enjoyable experience or is it not an enjoyable experience? And you can lose, right? I lose all the time. But I usually have a great experience because the people that I'm playing with make it enjoyable. And we don't argue about rules. We care about each other more than we care about the rule. So I think that no matter what rules you use, DBA, DBM, WRG, Impetus, Armadi, Tactica, Meg, Hail Caesar, To the Strongest, Spear Point. I mean, there's lots of them that are out there, and they're all, in essence, wonderful sets of rules. And that's exactly what they are. They're just a set of guidelines and rules for us to play with those things that we've painted and built over the past months or sometimes years. So I don't think I'm going to have a bad game. I think I'm going to be surprised at the end what transpires. So off to trying Hannibal. We'll see what comes out of that. And then I think I'm going to embark on trying To the Strongest as the next one. And then I've got about another 5 after that to try. And my new friend, who I've never met, Ralph, wanted me to try another set of rules. I have to buy them first. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Okay, let's take a look at the Carthaginian side. So the scenario called for 4 units of Numidian cavalry. So I put 2 on this flank. 3 units of what they called citizen cavalry. So I just took more of my cavalry that were Carthaginian or Numidian, not the ones I used the other day in the game. I thought this would be a little bit more appropriate. It called for, as you can see from this battle line, actually quite a bit. 4 units of slingers and 6 units of Libyan javelin, It had Celtic Iberians, which are there, so 4 units of Celts. It had 6 units of Numidian light infantry. So these are Numidian lights. Um, and thank God I had Numidian figures, right? I mean, come on. And then it had 6 units of Punic levy, which are these here. So those are Punic levy. It had 8 units of citizen infantry, which are these. And it had 6 units of Libyan spearmen. So I put 2 there and 2 down there, or no, 4 of Libyan spearmen. And then the rest. So actually it's a very large army. And actually I have to say it might be too big to start a new game of something I've never played, but hey, what the heck. I've had people tell me, say either go big or go home. So let's see if I can play Age of Hannibal with something this big. In reality, if I was using their rules, right, where they said a 40 millimeter stand is a unit, then there would be half this many troops on the table, which would give room for maneuvering, which I think would be very attractive. But most of my stuff is mounted on 80 millimeter frontage for other games. So we're going to try it. I think it'll work just fine. I just have to make sure that I go through the mechanics. So let's get on with it. Let's see what happens. First turn. Okay, this was Carthaginian first turn. Nothing really interesting to happen, but I did learn something and I had to do some adjustments. You have as many moves as your morale clock. So you start with 10. And at least I did. I started with 10. And so if you have a line that's touching each other, like this line here and this line, they're all together, that could be one move. So I moved them as a group. So there was 1 move forward, 5 inches, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, 6, 7, and 8. So I had 8 group moves, and that's under my 10, but that's good. They could all move forward in keeping in line. I could see, and here's the brilliance that I see coming with this game, is that as you start getting into combat and the javelins start flying and the slings and the combat, that your lines get convoluted and you have to really start thinking about where you going to move with your units, and you need to have a strategy. You can't do everything at one time. I can see that unfolding just as I'm moving here going, oh wow, that's interesting. I have to think about this. And I didn't think about it. So now I have to think about it and come up with a Carthaginian strategy and somehow keep that away from my Roman opponent, which is me. Now, I have to come up with my own idea of how to move a Roman line. So I have to do some adjustments here to make sure that it falls within the same realm of possibilities. I'm thinking that if a unit is touching each other, Roman-wise, in a checkerboard, that they can move as a group. I'm just going to make that rule for myself, and let's see if that works out. But so far, it's interesting. We'll come to blows here soon. All right, Roman turn number 1. Okay, end of Roman turn 1. What I've decided is that each legion, so from this point over, moves as one group move if they're still in their triple axes. Their velites was one group, and then the other legion, another group. So in essence, at this point, to move these groups forward, it took me 4 pips, or four off my command rating. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I moved the Numidian light cavalry forward as far as they could. That's 5. The Roman cavalry, 6. And then I refused to this flank, keeping them steady. So I only needed 6 to move forward, and yeah, that worked out great. Now, what's nice on their sheets that they give you for each battle, I like how they've laid it out. Just very, very simple. Who the commander is, how far each unit moves. All of the stats are on this one sheet that they've created. So there's the Roman and there's the Carthaginian. I mean, the rules are extremely well thought out, simple, and yeah, I'm very impressed. Okay, so Carthaginian turn 3, they moved their cavalry up and fired their javelins. Both were misses. That ended the Carthaginian turn as they're moving forward. The Romans now have decided that they are going to be pressing forward, so they did exactly the same thing, except this time their front row of velites are now within javelin fire. Their Numidian cavalry on the wing moved up for javelin fire, but I could already see the amount of command moves that I need are up to 8. But let's do a javelin fire here together. In their table, it's very, very simple. Do you see? It's a 4 inches to throw it, and they roll a dice, and it's either a demoralized or a K. Very, very, very simple. So let's go ahead and do it. We've got on this flank 1 javelin going into the Numidian in front of him. We're going to roll the dice, D8, and he rolls a 7. A 7 on the table is a D, so they automatically take a demoralization hit. It's that simple. Now that cavalry can't move forward and can't attack until they shrug that demoralization off, which they might be able to do that. They would need on their round a 6+, so on, I believe, 2 dice, but I'll figure that out when we get to it. But it's that simple, but it is becoming a bit complex. I could see it coming to a complexity that makes sense and seems fun. So let's see what happens the rest of the Roman turn as I go through the firing phase. Okay, here we go. This is the end of the Roman firing. It caused several demoralization factors. But one of the things that I forgot to mention that I thought is very interesting is that the commanders have particular traits that you roll. So Hasdrubal has an ill trait, which means he does not provide any benefit to rallying, and Syphax is a suspect ally, which means when your demoralization clock hits 3, he flees the field. Oh, that just sucks. And the Romans, Scipio has a semi-divine, which means that he is on semi-divine. It's actually pretty good, actually. It increases their personal bonuses by +1 and everything. So he has a command fighting value of 3, and he can provide 3 to the rallying factor. So having him somewhere on the field is really, really important. And Maecenas is brash, which means if he attaches himself to any unit, they become fearsome. So to charge them, you need a particular factor. But each unit on this field has different characteristics that you can add to make the game feel like you want troops to be. Like the Carthaginians have, their Numidian infantry are unreliable, so they're very difficult with staying on the field. The Punic levy is unsteady. The citizen infantry is unreliable. So really, the Carthaginians here, although they have a lot, really can be chewed up fast. They're quite unreliable, except for the Gauls. They've got a wild frenzy charge and your phalanxes. So actually, as I'm learning through the rules, I'm becoming more and more excited about the potential. Anyway, now we're moved to a Carthaginian move, turn 4. Okay, here we are at the end of turn 5. So the Numidians exchanged fire. So the Romans caused one on them and one on the skirmish line. So now they've got 2 DMs, so they can't charge or do whatever. They're going to have to retire, right? So when they get 2, you have to retire. So this unit here has to retire back. I'm going to put them right here, just that easy. Down here, this unit received 2, so they have to retire. So, and I'm just going to move them back to here. That's about right. Okay. So now you can see what the complexity is. Now instead of moving a group, they've got 3 groups to move. So that's pretty cool. But one of the things that we have to do now is, it's not going to apply now, but it will in a little bit, is counting your morale clock chips. So the way that that works is, it doesn't work with skirmishers, that doesn't apply, but these Numidians are light horse. So by taking 1 casualty there and 1 casualty on the other flank, the Roman player would get 2 to the morale clock. And the Numidians caused 1. So that's not enough to move the morale clock. You have to have at least 5 on one side to have that chip away, right? So every turn you have to kind of calculate that. So every time you get a demoralization or a kill, you throw a chit into the pot. So red's for Roman and black is for Carthaginian, just like the card clock. So very interesting. I'm going a little bit slow because I want to make sure that I get it right. So anyway, now it is the top of the Carthaginian turn. Okay, just to give you a little bit of an idea what happened on the Carthaginian turn. Their Gauls decided to charge, and 1 unit of skirmishers. The other one couldn't because it had a demoralization marker. But they charged the line of skirmishers and inflicted some damage, but not conclusively. So I'm not sure how that works. They didn't double up. They just caused DM. So I'm going to read up on that, make sure I did that right. The Gaelic cavalry charged the Numidian light horse. They stood and lost that combat, and they received one DM, 1 demoralization marker. So the Gauls on their charge didn't break through the skirmish front. I need to make sure that I'm doing that right, but it looks like I did, but I am not sure. Now it is the top of the Romans, and it's going to be interesting. What I didn't do right was that you always remove all of the demoralization markers if you rally, so you can remove 2 of them, and I was only taking 1 pip off, so my bad. I'll just continue with no going back over spilled milk. You just continue with the way that it goes. It's a very simple set of rules, but also extremely sophisticated. I think Greg did a great job, to be honest. Thank you. So I finally finished my game of Age of Hannibal by Little Wars TV. It was a unbelievably enjoyable game. I played one of the scenarios out of their book, the Carthaginians against the Romans, Scipio against Hasdrubal. Very enjoyable. It was a thrown together, very interesting Carthaginian force, one that I would not have put together, but it was one that they actually had fielded, thrown together very quickly, levy troops, untried. You can see them here. There's different, they're out in their different blocks because I'm cleaning up the game. I actually forgot to film the last piece, but they fought against, I would say it looks like two legions to me of veteran Scipio legionnaires. And what I really liked at the end of the game was that I could actually see this ebb and flow of an ancient game that I was looking for. The lines had to be kept together. If you didn't have enough command points to move them, they just couldn't. And as time went on, it became more and more difficult to control your army. And as you started to lose demoralization points and your unit started to evaporate, each turn of the other opponent, your morale clock clicked down. It clicked down to 4 points for the Romans and 2 for the Carthaginians, which then they just lost. That you could actually see in the game how it was actually eroding for the Carthaginian player. It was amazing. It was, I would say, probably one of the better ancient rule sets that I've played. I love Hail Caesar, and I like really all of them, but this one was a bit of a surprise to me. And it gave me the exact feel that I was looking for. The Romans played the way that I would want them to play. They had line replacement. They had their pila. The mechanics were unbelievably simple in the game, but yet really quite sophisticated. And as you look at different army lists, you can add, different bonus features: free facing, unreliable, wild charge for Celts. You could add Roman drill or pila, so you could really kind of change and morph the game to the way that you feel is right for that particular scenario. But with their terrain generation, which I didn't use with this one, I used on another game. What an unbelievably delightful set of rules. I would put it up, I would give it a 10. I know that I'm not using a very sophisticated system, but I've played a lot of games and I have a lot of miniatures. And I would say, wow, that was really unbelievably enjoyable, accurate, plausible. I didn't live in the ancient time period, but I would imagine that my troops would have acted just like that. But it really was a command and control game at the end. I think that the Little Wars TV fellas that put this together, all of them, they did a brilliant, a brilliant job. And I just want to thank them. This will be a go-to rule set for me, for my ancients. It works well with Romans, Carthaginians, Greeks, Macedonians, Persians, I would guess probably Indians as well, but really that time period between, let's say, 300 BC to 0 or maybe even 50 or 100 AD, maybe somewhere in there. Really, really nice. Anyway, thank you, Little Wars TV. Thank you for all of your hard work. And I have to say, Greg, great work. And of course, all of you who play tested, I loved it. Thank you.